Thank you. Brenda Chapman, and I make stories. One of the things I have to ask you, I'm going to show a short clip from Brave. It's actually not from the film. It's a test we did, and I have to ask you not to film it if you have your iPhones out or anything like that. But other than that, we're good to go. So I will start with that. Did you all see that in the beginning? Okay, all right, thank you. So that, I have to give it a caveat after the fact, is that that was all test. That is not what you actually saw in the film, per se. It was all preliminary designs, environments, test runs. And that whole piece encompassed what I'm going to be talking about: the creativity, the taking risks, and the initiative. They did that short to see if we could even do the film, because I come up with this idea that had all this organic stuff, and it was imperative to the story that it be organic and you could feel it. So it was the creativity of the organic, which was the hair, the grass, the mud, the layered cloth, the lighting, the moss on the trees. It was all of that that we just laid before our technical team and said, can we do this? And this is what they proved that we could. And if you notice on her, we threw her together really, but her ears are gigantic. And so that was the beginning of it. And then, taking that risk on new technology to achieve that creative goal, they did an amazing job. And it was the initiative to try something new despite the risk, because the goal is worth it. So going way back, I've drawn since I can hold a crayon. I used to play this game called the Scribble Game with my mom, and I'm sure it's not an app, it's not anything, at least that I know of. It's where someone does a little scribble on a piece of paper, and then you give it to the other person, and they have to make something out of it. My mom did that with me since I could remember. And, you should try it, because it really pushes you to see beyond what you're looking at. It really does. You've really got to stretch your imagination and exercise that muscle. And I realize now that all of my drawings when I was a kid had a story behind them. That's the way I think I was hardwired. Like this cowboy and his son are going to feed the chickens. And that's my dog Cricket. She's barking at the kite because she hated kites. And then there's this little girl who lived in the mountains with her goose and was protected by this enchanted billy goat. And then there's Dawn Dark with Dowdy, and I'll let you figure out what that one, I'll let you run with that one. But I was really lucky because my parents, especially my mom, encouraged me to grow creatively. She challenged me. She pushed me to find that that thing that was outside myself. And she wanted me to follow my dreams and to take the risk of what that means. So jumping back ahead now, I eventually, because of that, applied to California Institute of the Arts. And I had discovered that by calling up Disney and trying to figure out how I actually could get into animation. And for the first time I applied to CalArts, I was rejected. I just didn't have what it took. But I didn't want to give up. So I worked really hard with my art teacher for my junior college, and the next year I was accepted. And then I had to pay for my own school, so I had to work and do all of that. And in a time when the animation industry was sort of in flux, most animation was being sent overseas. Disney was sort of the last vestige of a place to work, and that was before Eisner and Wells and Katzenberg had come on. But Disney was my goal because that's what I'd grown up on. So because I had to put myself through school, I worked at a place called DIC the first summer after my freshman year. And it was an interesting time because I'd been there for like a couple of months, and then they wanted to send me to Japan. And why do you want to send me to Japan? Well, I was the only one in DIC that actually had animation experience. And they wanted to send me there specifically because they needed someone to check the lip sync because of the Japanese animators on the English-speaking film. And I didn't bother to tell them that the animation I learned had no sound in it my first year at college, so I had not done any type of lip sync whatsoever. But I thought, you know what, I bet I could learn. So, and I did. I went and I learned on the job, and it was a chance to grow, and I took that risk and didn't regret it. It was a lot of fun, and I did learn a lot. It also made me learn I didn't want to go into TV animation. So this next thing I'm going to show you is my student film. Because I went back to school and I worked at DIC during the summers, and I went to college for 3 years. Sorry, you have a blank page up there. But my third year student film, I sort of stepped outside the box of what the students did. Most of the students, and I had in my first couple of years done these gag-filled films, little short 3-minute pieces. But this one, I needed to do something that was more me, because I realized I was trying too hard to make the Yuck Fest, the Gag Fest. And I knew this was my last chance to make my own film, all my own. So what happened was it got me noticed because it was out of the box. It had heart to it. It had a different piece, and it was a creative risk. But what you're about to see is a very ancient form of animation called a pencil test. And there were no computers back then. I just had an Oxberry, and so bear with me. Here we go. Thank you. So that is the film that got me the pencil test that got me noticed to be hired at Disney, and it's always really uncomfortable because you don't get a lot of laughs. You can hear a pin drop when I think, oh my God. So I was prepared to show this. I really wanted to get into story at Disney, and actually all of the teachers I had at CalArts were sort of from the old school. They were they'd worked on things like Lady and the Tramp and Snow White and those things. I was very fortunate. But they still had a bit of that old attitude. So while they were telling the boys that they should, put their portfolios together to be an animator, they were telling me I needed to put my portfolio prepared for cleanup, which is cleaning up after the animators. So being really naive at the time, I was like, okay, I'm putting my portfolio in for cleanup, but a good friend of mine and my current husband of the past 28 years, advised me that, just give it a try. I put in my storyboard in my portfolio in the back, put in my reel, and then put at the bottom of like a PS, eventually would like to be in a story-related position. So amazing of amazing, I was hired as a story trainee after they'd seen this film, and some of the animators and the story artists had seen that. Not just because of my film, though. When I went into Ed Hanson's office, who was the director of feature animation at that time, he said, well, come along right at the right time. We need a woman. We're getting a lot of flack because we don't have any women in our story department. And because you're a trainee, you're the right price. I mean, I kid you not, he said those words to me. So I was excited nonetheless. I was getting my foot in the door, but what a way to get in there. So I felt like I had to work harder than I would have thought, which probably was a good thing. I needed to prove to myself and to them that I had what it took to actually do this job. So reverse sexism isn't quite fun either, but at least I had the job. So I was given the opportunity, and I was able to keep it. And one of the problems I had was my draftsmanship. Wasn't quite up to snuff to Disney's expectations. So I worked really hard. One of the things that happened to me on Little Mermaid, which told me that what I had to give was worth something. It may not be the most perfect thing, but there was a spark in it, was that, I don't know if many of you know Little Mermaid and all the scenes within it, but there's a scene, they gave me a reprise of one of the songs, Part of Your World. It's when Ariel saves Prince Eric and then takes him up on the beach and sings the reprise to Part of Your World. And then when his dog runs out, she swims away and goes and hides behind this rock. And as the scene progresses and she sees the big, she pushes herself up, and there's a big splash behind her on the rock, and it's a big iconic moment in the film. So we have these things called dailies that we would do, where we would go in, actually it was weeklies, but we would go in every week and look at all the storyboards that were done, and then animation would eventually take that over, and we'd see that. Well, they showed my boards, and when that moment came up, everybody started laughing. And I saw my drawing for the first time, because Ariel was so darn skinny, she was anorexic, but I really wanted to get that feeling that she was going up. Well, her neck was like this long. Because all that hair was blowing, and people started laughing. I was mortified. So the next week, much to my surprise, they showed the scene again. And that drawing came up, and everybody howled even harder, because back in those days, we didn't, it was like you cut and paste, and you Xerox it, or you just cut and paste it. Well, they had taken the drawing, cut it down, and there was a big piece of tape across her neck to make her neck the right length. I was like, oh, jeez. But what it told me was, and what they explained to me, is that the expression and the acting that I had on her, they didn't want to mess with. They really liked that, the heart that was coming out of the character. So I thought, okay, my drawings may be a little wonky, but they're conveying something. And so I had to believe in that, and I had to maintain that. So that was the one mollifying thing about that whole piece. So I went on then to work on Rescuers Down Under. And that was another opportunity that I was given to move a little farther along, which was I was bottom on the totem pole. You know, I was no longer a trainee. I'd been promoted up to regular story artist, but I was getting like the dregs of the work. But there was one scene in which, in the story, there's this giant golden eagle who is captured by a hunter, and this little boy frees it, climbs way up on this cliff and frees it, but falls off the cliff in the process, and the eagle rises up and goes and catches the boy, takes it on this wonderful flight, and then takes the little boy back to her nest to show the little boy that she has eggs and she's worried about them because of this hunter, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that they wanted to get this information across, but no one could figure out how to do it. We didn't write scripts all the way through back then, and the story artists had to try to figure out how these scenes work. They'd have scripts, but then they'd fall apart, and we'd have to fix them in storyboard form. So I watched all these story artists trying to figure out how to get this across where it wasn't painful to watch, because most of the time you'd have to stop, the boy go up there, and then the eagle would say, "My name is Marahute. I have eggs. I'm scared for those eggs. I'm afraid for those eggs because there's this big bad hunt." You know, it was just sort of this ponderous dialogue to give exposition across, and everybody was trying to, they try to make it funny, they try to make it sad, they try to, they do all this stuff, and it just was painful every time. I'm sitting there going, "Oh, can I try? So finally, I've gone through all of them, and it came to me, and they said, "Okay, give it your best shot." Not a lot of hope. And what I did was I went to the animator Glenn Keane, and I was telling him about my idea. I had seen something that Roy Disney had directed live action wise about a boy and his eagle, and I remember that eagle having such amazing expression that it could communicate, and so I finally was able to do it where the boy did all the talking and the eagle responded by bird-like gestures, and it all came across not very painfully. So, and I'm sorry I don't have that clip, but I wish I did. But that was the thing that got me noticed then to be able to take a senior role on the next project, which was Beauty and the Beast. I shared a room with my mentor, Roger Allers, who was the head of story on that, eventually went on to become the director of The Lion King. And I became his right-hand man. I really worked hard and was able to help him do his job. And one of the scenes that I did on that was the bandaging the beast scene, where Belle has run off, escaped, and she's attacked by wolves, and Beast comes out and saves her and brings her back to the castle. And so she's bandaging his wounds. And it's the first time a Disney princess has actually yelled at the hero of the film. He's yelling at her, and she's yelling right back and giving it back. And it was a really great moment to be able to do a scene without making her having to be prissy and perfect and all of that. So it was actually kind of groundbreaking. But it gave me the opportunity and the courage to ask for head of story on Swan Lake. Disney Swan Lake, have you ever heard of it? They canned that project because there was another project being done very similar called The Swan Princess at another studio. So much to my dismay, the project was my greatest fear. The project I was hoping to avoid was King of the Jungle. And it had been in development hell for years at Disney, and it looked horrible. All the artwork, story never made any sense. They tried to avoid it. And then I got snagged because they just brought Roger Allers on to direct, be a co-director on it, and I knew he would want me to be his head of story. And I was like, ah. But I'd asked for it, so I couldn't say no. So I got onto it and I helped to rework the story, and I found my passion for the project and had a blast because it became The Lion King. They sent us to Kenya on a research trip. I didn't even want to go. I had no interest in Africa. I like Europe. I wanted to go to Europe. And so I wanted Swan Princess, you know. But I went to Africa, and it was the most amazing trip I've ever had, the most incredible trip. But Lion King was the B project. Nobody wanted to work on it. As I did the same as me, everyone was trying to avoid it. So all of the A talent was put on Pocahontas. And so we had a really green but incredibly talented and dedicated crew. And they had the opportunity to show what they could do. And they had a reason to really get in there. And the rest is history. It was the biggest film at Disney in that stretch of time. So I wanted to expand, and I like taking risks, I found, much to my surprise. So I went with Jeffrey Katzenberg when he left Disney. I learned to actually respect the man. I know we have our creative differences big time, but he's very upfront. He's one of those people who will tell you like it is, whether you like hearing it or not. You know, there's none of if you're going to get stabbed, you're going to get stabbed in the front, not in the back. So however you may feel about DreamWorks films, they were groundbreaking in expanding beyond the Disney style and giving us other options in animation, which was very exciting. And the first film, he wouldn't tell me what it was when I first went over, and then I discovered it was The Prince of Egypt, and I was like, what? Are you crazy? It's got God in it. Are you nuts? And they've done it. It's the Ten Commandments, and it's a tradition, and people love that. Why are we redoing it? But he was adamant. Steven Spielberg was adamant, and David Geffen was adamant. So I took the risk, and it was out of my comfort zone. And but what I had to do was stretch myself, and I really firmly believe that you have to find, no matter what you do, that thing within the project you're working on that you can relate to, that can inspire you, the tiniest little bit. Because many of us, right now we've got a lot of entrepreneurs in here that they are. You guys are starting your own business, you're doing your own apps, you're doing all that. But there are a lot of people out there who work for you, who work under somebody else. And that's what I did most of my career. I was working on other people's projects. But I found that you have to find that thing within those projects that inspires you, that gives you a passion, so that you can bring what you do to the table and do it the best you can. And that way you can actually have a pride in it. So on Prince of Egypt, I searched with my two co-directors, and we found a brother's story. And we decided we were going to try to tell this from a human point of view, and how all this sort of supernatural stuff that happens to them, how they deal with it on a human level. And that is what drove us, our passion through this project. We're very proud of the film. After that, I searched for more challenges. I tried a couple of other studios on different projects, and ended up at Pixar, and thought I found what I was looking for there, because there I was able to work on Brave, which is the most creative and risky thing I've ever done. For the first time, I was able to do my own passion project instead of doing someone else's passion project or something chosen for me by the studio. So Brave was fed by three loves. One is my love of fairy tales. I love the darker, older fairy tales, the Grimms, the ones with the scary parts, not necessarily the bright, happy Disney musical versions. But I worked on plenty of those. But I do like that dark, edge. I loved Pan's Labyrinth. Oh my God, that was so cool. But the second love was Scotland. I'm a great American mutt, and I I have many countries I could turn to say I'm from there. But my Scottish genes seem to be crying out to be heard, and I've always been sort of in love with that country, and it's beautiful. It's ripe with stories to be told about it, either ones that are already there, ones to make up, you know. So, and the people are really strong, have this spunky kind of spirit. I really love the Scots. They're pretty amazing people. But most importantly, something that had taken over my life at this time was my daughter. And she's beautiful, she's funny, she's strong-willed, she drives me freaking crazy. She's got an outrageously strong personality. And it took over my life. So it's like, if I'm going to commit myself to something, I need something that blends well to be able. So I had to create a story about her that was inspired by her. And so at the start of Brave, I looked. When I was trying to create that story, I was looking through my volumes and volumes of old fairy tales, trying to find a mother and daughter story that I could turn into a film, and imbue it with my daughter's personality and all of that. But all I could find were fathers and daughters, wicked stepmothers and daughters, or no mothers at all, or mothers who disappeared a third of the way through and replaced by a handsome prince somewhere. It was insane. I just couldn't find one. So I had to create one myself. So now I had that mission. I was determined to create a new kind of fairy tale that a contemporary audience could relate to, and break that cliche of what a princess was. Because I've also read a lot of stuff about real princesses, and that they were hard workers. Their marriages were arranged usually. There wasn't this true love waiting for the knight in white shining armor to come along. It was it was a tough job. So I thought let's do this, and I hope that I succeeded. It seems to be doing pretty well out there. So I'm really proud of that. But from Brave on, that also gave me the opportunity to work for myself. I am, creating stories on my own, and also consulting for other people. I like being able to, fix things that are broken and try to make them happen. But I also, I'm illustrating, I'm blogging, I'm speaking, I'm mentoring, which to me is one of the most important jobs I have now. And I'm consulting and developing projects and taking risks to stretch myself creatively. I'm taking the initiative on new ideas and story and challenging the technology. What can we do? I've been talking to a few of you out here. I'm just fascinated to be here. Most of what Tim said was completely over my head with all the talk, with all the abbreviations and things that I don't know what they are. But I'm very curious because I know there are ways to tell stories within what you do beyond what has been done before. And I know that people in this room probably have the ability to push that envelope, more so than the film industry has now. So take risks and be creative. I challenge you, and share it. Thank you.